They always thought it was funny because when they were done eating, and I apologize that they littered, but they'd throw their garbage away, but not out the window, through the hole in the floor that was rusted. Literally, I'm not exaggerating. They threw it through the floor on the passenger side.
Real cars, real guys, and real talk. Live from the gearbox at Unique Classic Cars. Welcome to Motorhood. All right, here we are. Welcome to Motorhood. It is episode 6, and apparently episode 5 started quite a shitstorm.
Well, I started the shitstorm
you did.
ago, but is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, we'll get to that in a sec. We are coming up on a big weekend here. We're talking about Jay, big Chiefs fan.
Oh, yeah.
He's been chirping nonstop for weeks now. My social media inbox from him and texting has been just nonstop.
Oh,
because I'm into the conspiracy theory.
Well, yeah, you're begging for it, man.
Yes, come on, man.
Yeah, and speaking of, you're the one that's been chirping. It's like, shut up with all the conspiracy crap.
When people say that there's no conspiracy, I say there is an ample supply of video that proves that I'm right.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that action.
No, you do know about that action.
Uh-huh.
But Jay, roaming around the building here,
yeah,
and I know that he's kind of gandered and looked up here because you want to know why.
What's up?
He actually took time to listen to our last podcast.
Oh, he actually listened to it? That's good.
We were talking about what you had done to a Fleet Mustang that he had years ago. Here, he's coming up the steps right now.
Speaking of a silver tongue.
Joining me now, I've got Jay, our silver-tongued video expert, our car video walk-around guy. If you watch any car video on our website at uniqueclassiccars.com, every single one is voiced by this man, Jay Andersen.
Hello.
Welcome. It is, I got to tell you, it's very refreshing to finally be sharing this table with someone who is a Chiefs fan, not a Chiefs bitcher, and talking about all the referees and all that kind of crap. I give George the what for here on all of his BS.
Well, I was a Chief bitcher for many, many years, going back to 70s, 80s.
True.
Wasn't quite so bad in the 90s. Now I'm back again. Haley, Pioli, started all over again.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to hate. Just 5 years ago, everybody loved it because it was Mahomes and the Chiefs finally winning again.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of like the Patriots were, Pittsburgh was,
yep.
Dallas was. Mm-hmm. You win, they hate you.
Yeah, that's true. I shared with George a couple of weeks ago when he was, going off on one of his rants about things being unfair and everything. I said, Nate Burleson, of all people, on the broadcast after the championship game, said something that was kind of interesting, and I've never heard a broadcaster say it. He said, hey, he goes, for everybody out there, he said, don't buy into the narrative, all this, we're sick of seeing the Chiefs and it's rigged, and we're sick. He goes, you're witnessing greatness and enjoy it. Don't hate on it because, just like you mentioned with the Patriots, it was, they went on and on and on for good, but that was, generational talent that was being worked on, and I think that's what we're witnessing now.
Exactly. And really the same, you go back to Pittsburgh also with Terry Bradshaw.
Yeah.
Get into some of the older ones. It was the same way.
Yeah.
You couldn't beat them. Steel curtain.
Yep, exactly. I mean, the Chiefs are a lot like the Minnesota. Oh no, they're not. Actually, the Vikings is the oldest sports franchise in history that doesn't have a championship. But I digress. Anyway, so we've talked about you. George and I have talked about you on this several times.
I've heard.
Oh, you have?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
So we refer to you as, obviously he's, as I mentioned, talks about you rather, as the lead Chiefs fan, and I'm just, second place guy. But also you're referred to as the Mustang guy. So tell us a little bit about your Mustang journey. Why and how the hell did you become a Mustang guy?
First real fun car I had was a Mustang.
Yeah.
And obviously you know that.
Oh, yeah.
And had a few since then, and just always been one of my favorites, I guess.
What was that one story? Didn't you start with a Fox body? Was it high school or after high school? Didn't you have a Fox?
Mm-hmm. 1984.
And wasn't there an event that happened when you were driving that car?
Sunroof, possibly.
Yeah, how'd that go?
We may have been at a local place where we had some refreshments. And driving home from having said refreshments, I had put the sunroof back in the car, but didn't latch it.
Oh.
A little bit of vacuum pressure, you might say, and right out the roof the sunroof went. And
Now you had a
thank God
moonroof.
it didn't hit a car behind us or anything.
Oh.
But yes, then I had a permanent moonroof.
That's one way to do it, I guess. You always been a Mustang guy, and then you got into Saleen. So how did that transition, or why did the Saleen thing pop up?
Something about the body style, performance, just always liked Saleens.
Yeah.
And first time I saw one in person, it was, loved them ever since.
Right. So what was the first one you had then, the Saleen?
96, S281.
Nice.
Speedster package.
Heck yeah. Yeah, that car was sweet.
Yep. Probably the best sounding car I've had.
Oh my gosh, and that had the white with were those powder coated wheels? Or?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, the thing is sweet. And now you've got a 1 of 500
Parnelli Jones, PJ.
Parnelli.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Nelly is the personalized plate on that car. That's fantastic. Now, I remember now. So we've also talked about. It's been mentioned that you and I have worked together for, oh my gosh, off and on for more on than off for what, 20 years?
Yeah, you better do the math on that one, but yeah, we're probably pushing 30.
I would say 25 sounds better than 30. So you may or may not have heard last episode, we spoke of another Mustang. You didn't own it, but you were driving it for a demo back when we worked at a new car store.
An old Stinky.
Yeah, that old stinky Mustang. What's your recollection of the stinky Mustang? What happened there?
My biggest recollection is what smells in here and why, and what did he do? It was obvious. It was you. No doubt about it.
Well, it was obvious because you pranked me earlier in the day, and I told you that's fine. But listen, man, as long as you can take it, you got to take it, right?
Exactly. Pulling into the convenience store, opening the hood, knowing it had to be under there, and there they were.
Now, when you say they, what do we?
Well, the yard brats, you might say.
Yard brats. I've never heard dog turds called yard brats. That's pretty funny.
Well, I wanted to feed them to you at that moment, so.
I'm sure. So how far? I said that it's about 15-mile drive for you or something like that at that time. How far into that drive did you notice that something was amiss?
Well, lucky it was
the airflow?
Cold enough, so it maybe didn't happen as soon as it could have. Mm-hmm. But yeah, 15, 20 into it, and oof.
Yeah, George asked, he goes, well, geez, now that you told that story, he goes, do you think other people are going to hear this story and do it to their buddies? And my response was, I hope so.
Me too, so I'm not the only one.
Right, exactly. Well, since we did the last podcast, I was like, there's some other, what I want to say, and we did not rehearse this, so I'm going to test you and see if you remember. And if you do, you got to tell the story. I'm just going to say one phrase and see if I can jog your memory. One prank that we did together, and it stemmed from us fishing off the dock.
Oh yeah, that. Mm-hmm.
How'd that go?
That was stinky too.
Yeah,
but luckily not for me. And that's right out of Grumpy Old Men, no doubt about it.
That was,
and I think it was before the movie, probably.
It had to be close. Tell everyone what you did.
I didn't do it.
No, we did, but
I might have caught the fish because you can't catch fish, but
you might be right.
Yeah, I made a little fish sandwich out of a small panfish, and it ended up in maybe the back seat or under the seat of somebody's car.
Yeah, I think it was under the seat of was it Troy, the guy we worked with at the time?
May have been.
Yeah.
I think we had 2 slices of white bread too.
2 slices of white bread and
slice of cheese.
And a slice of cheese.
And that's a lot of years ago. Oh my God.
And then it was under there long enough. I think it made its own mayo, if you know what I mean. But so that was there. Was it 5 days before he figured? I think it was 5 days. And this was in the middle of the summer, of course. And we were nice enough to put it in a Ziploc bag, so it wouldn't leak all over.
Maybe
However,
not quite.
It wasn't
closed
sealed
all the way.
We need to let the effervescence flow. But we made a sunfish sandwich and put that under Troy's seat. And 5 days later, he couldn't figure out why his car stunk. And when he found that was that was pretty good. That was pretty good.
No, I learned something from that first one. Is when you do them, especially to you, don't get caught.
Well, Jay, thanks for popping on and kind of walking down memory lane and sharing some of these pranks, man.
We don't want to talk about one more, maybe?
It's been a hell of a... I think that's it. No. Or
you got to watch who you let in your pantry.
Oh, God.
Like I said, you got to have an accomplice.
Yeah.
Maybe keep people distracted. And
that was a freaking Super Bowl party, wasn't it?
It sure was.
What'd you guys... I still don't 100% know how you pulled that off. Let everybody know what you did.
Jeremy had a rather large pantry where you could walk into it, close the door, and spend some time in there. And, I kind of set up a friend to get in there and kept Jeremy away from it and everybody else away from that pantry. And by the time Jeremy got back in there, there was a lot of cans without labels on them.
Oh, my God.
He didn't know if he's eating corn, beans, baked beans, peas.
Nope. I went to make hot dish or goulash or whatever you want to call it one night. I had the hamburger frying in the pan, and the noodles were boiling in the other pan, and I went and grabbed a can of tomato paste, and I ended up with a can of pineapple. So that was that didn't work so well. So 4 cans later, I finally found the tomato paste. Or tomato soup, whatever it was.
That's always one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah. That was
and I
good.
didn't really take the heat directly.
Yeah, that's true.
Mutual
accomplice, yeah, exactly. Awesome.
Speaking of which, there may be one more.
What?
And this is going to blindside you because I don't even know if you've ever really realized it or not.
Oh, wow. Now I'm nervous.
That same house.
Yep.
There ever seemed like a time where maybe had a lot of light bulbs burn out at the same time, or maybe a lamp wasn't working, kind of throughout the house, maybe had to tighten light bulbs, change light bulbs?
Are you kidding me? Oh, my gosh. Okay.
See, you don't get caught and don't talk about it, don't let you know, and now I suppose I got to wait for the next one.
Let her linger. All right, nice. Well, as a result of this here little chat, I now have some fresh motivation, man. Well, thanks for coming on, talking Chiefs, talking Mustangs, talking pranks, man. I appreciate it, and as always, most of the time it's been fun working with you, man. Keep up the good work on the videos, and I'm sure we'll be chatting again.
Mm-hmm,
maybe we'll come back and boast about the Chiefs win here after the
Never
Super
know.
Bowl.
3-peat, cross your fingers.
All right, let's do it.
Did you know about the light bulbs?
Honestly, I'm a little disappointed in myself because I usually keep on top of that kind of crap as someone who, appreciates a good joke, and I completely missed it. And the little bastard remembers it from however many years ago, and he never told me. He never gave it up.
Now that you're thinking back, though, can you remember that incident?
Oh, 100%. I've still the labels off the cans in the pantry. That I finally got pissed off. I just threw a bunch of stuff away because I didn't know what the hell was in it.
Right.
It was like, what's for dinner? I don't know. It's a surprise every time you open a can. You have no idea what the hell's in it. I mean, I was honestly, I was a little miffed afterwards, but I mean, I can appreciate the joke. So you just kind of roll with it.
I am still shocked that you did that to a fleet vehicle.
Well, it was a company car, a demonstrator. Obviously, I would never do anything that would permanently hurt it or whatever. But for the sake of a joke, oh my gosh! And he, how much did he downplay? He's like, oh yeah, they put some. What did he call them? Yard brats. He called them yard brats. Put some yard brats on the manifold and oh yeah, it kind of smells. He was downplaying that so bad because I tell you, when I got the phone call, when he figured it out 20 years ago, whenever this thing was, he was not anywhere near that calm. So
it was. I can't even imagine what that smelled like inside that vehicle. Have you ever encountered other vehicles that the odor inside them just absolutely drives you crazy, or have you ever done that yourself? Because I left a shrimp basket in July.
Oh, come on.
I'm not kidding. I was at a bar downtown. This was years ago, and I had some leftover French fries and some shrimp, and I was like, a few beers, a few cocktails in me. I was like, I'll eat it later. I left it in there all night, went to work the following day, and I was like, geez, something's going on. 2 days later, it was buried under some stuff that I had in my back seat.
Okay.
And you want to know what shrimp does when it's about 120 degrees in your car?
Does it sprout maggots?
Dude, it was so freaking bad. And to get that smell out of your car is almost impossible. It did stink. It was nasty. So to get that smell out, when you told me what you had done, I was like, there's no way he got that smell out of the vehicle.
The nice thing about doing that is that you're not physically doing anything to the car. It's literally just airborne. So once it burned off, cleaned up, whatever, it was fine, and doesn't stay. So that's why it was a good temporary but very pungent joke.
We actually had a 79 Camaro, numbers matching, beautiful car last summer, and the guy had stored mothballs in that, right? It's almost impossible to get that. It's to deter mice, right? I'm assuming.
And it's a toss-up which one smells worse, mice piss or mothballs.
That is the honest-to-God truth.
I get it. And believe me, with all the old cars, I mean, we've seen all kinds of stuff. People put mothballs, Irish Spring bar soap, this granule stuff, these little mice baits. It's unbelievable all the home remedies people try to do to keep mice out of their cars.
Which one is the best? Honestly,
I don't know. Dryer sheets, that's another one. I've done that because they're not they don't smell up your car, at least not bad.
Right.
And I've had fairly good luck with that.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Because one thing I cannot stand is, going back to the smell thing real briefly before we move on here, is when somebody has 25 or 30 of those pine tree air conditioners and they're all wrapped up in
air fresheners.
Yeah, air fresheners. Just, I cannot stand the smell of those things.
See, I don't mind, like, is it the yellow one? Is that the vanilla one? Or there's the ones that smell like deep forest, the pine.
Yes.
The pine one. That's the one you're talking about.
The pine one is terrible. Ones. It smells and tastes like you're drinking a straight bottle of cheap gin. It is just
you're not wrong.
Disgusting.
But the yellow and the red trees?
Yeah.
But here's another pet peeve. You're supposed to, when you get those, right? You're supposed to only cut the top of the bag and expose a little bit of the tree at the time. No.
How trashy.
What's everybody do? They put 2 or 3 of them in their car, rip the bags off, and you're immersed in whatever scent that is. It's terrible.
Immediately, if I get into a car and I see that and I smell that, I'm like, what are you masking?
Right.
Right? And odds are I have a pretty good idea what they are masking.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was young once, too. Speaking of young people, we're going to talk a little bit about a few cars we've got that I would say are geared towards millennials, which are the next generation of classic car buyers.
Right.
I had mentioned I was doing a walk on with a video on social media last week, and we had an 05 GTO. And I just think that that's one of the great examples of the cars that are really attractive to guys in their 40s and even into their early 50s now.
Oh yeah, they're definitely up and coming and have been for a while. The Z28s and the Firebirds and the Trans Ams, and there was nothing domestic. If you think about it, there was nothing domestic that was fast.
Right.
I mean, especially by today's standards, fast. There was nothing. The 80s.
Right.
And you really got to hunt to find. So then you got to rely on just what looked cool.
Yeah.
And there was some cool looking stuff, but nothing was fast.
I think the 80s and then the 90s were the ones that really kind of brought in some of the Japanese imports for some of these younger guys, right?
Oh, yeah, like the Mitsubishi, the 3000 GTs,
yes.
And those are like super. They're popular now, even.
Toyota Supras.
Yeah, the Supras, the Nissan 300s.
Yeah, you know what shocked me though was the number one vehicle, and I was into Haggerty and some of these other statistics. One of the top vehicles that they like are the late 60s Mustangs.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. There's still a few of the traditional classics, what we would call classics, that the newer generation is interested in, but they're very it's not as broad sweeping. So like you say, the Mustangs, the C10 like pickup trucks and K10 and the square bodies, that kind of stuff is all they got their eye on that stuff.
Do you know why they like those vehicles?
Are you going to tell me?
I was digging into it, and I think because vintage anything is popular with that generation, they like the style, right? Because you hear them complain about cars like that. Everything looks the same, right? It's boxy, it looks electric, all of that stuff. So I think that's what it is. I honestly believe it's that custom style. And there was a lot of thought put into the way these vehicles look, and it didn't necessarily revolve around aerodynamics, right?
Yeah, look at a square body.
Exactly. But we have a 65 fastback here, and it's beautiful. It's got the 289.
Yeah, the fastbacks are always in the Mustangs. I mean, any of that first generation fastback 2+2 setup, they're hot. I mean, I don't care what age you are. I don't care if it's a stock Mustang or a complete resto mod like an Eleanor clone from Gone in 60 Seconds. Those cars are the fastbacks are it.
Do you think movies like Fast and Furious and all of those are helping drive the market?
Oh my gosh, for sure. Going back to the Barrett-Jackson trip, there's always at Barrett-Jackson or even Mecum or any of these bigger auctions, there's always like a half a dozen Eleanor clones. Well,
no kidding.
Eleanor didn't become a thing until Gone in 60 Seconds.
Wow.
So there's always these gray with the Shelby wheels and all this stuff. I mean, and they're sweet looking.
Yeah.
But, and they're putting Coyote motors in them and stuff in their six-figure cars and all this, and they're stunning. But, yeah, 100% the movies affect those. Look at that. And again, going back, the 77 Trans Am from Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah.
Those cars, they've almost gotten untouchable for a average car buyer,
Right?
Because their collectability and stuff. I mean, some of them. I mean, they're getting to be like blue chip cars. If you have an original low mile documented one, oh my gosh, they're big money.
Yeah. You know what else kind of shocked me was they like those Fox bodies. Mm-hmm. Why? To me, that was kind of the off era, personally, as far as design. But there's a lot of guys that are crazy about them. Millennials specifically love them, and I think it goes back to, that's what mom and dad had.
Well, and the other thing is, you got to think about when the Fox body came out. Think about what the Mustang body style was right before the Fox body. It was hideous.
Yeah,
it was a joke.
Yeah.
It should have even had the Mustang name, and I'm not like a diehard Ford guy.
Right.
And even I can say they were terrible.
Yeah.
You know, the coolest they got was like a 78 King Cobra. In fact, there's one in the shop right now that we're doing a restoration on.
I just saw that. I got to go back there and I'll get some video and get that up to
Yeah,
date.
and the lady that owns it, I don't know the 100% story. Maybe you could get it when you go back there, but I know they've owned it for almost forever. And we just did a bunch of mechanical work on it, and now she's contemplating doing if we're going to do a cosmetic restoration on it.
Oh, please.
Or what. So, but I mean, that, in the late 70s, that King Cobra thing, that was as cool as the Mustangs got. So when the Fox body came out, oh, hell yeah, that thing was way cooler than what it was replacing.
Right. Another thing that's super popular is the 80s Camaros. Mm-hmm. Right? Because now when I was young, obviously, you know that I have kind of an affinity for the late 70s. I like the 78, 79, because to me, well, when I was young in grade school, the cool high school kids had those. And I remember it was a black one. It had
that red and orange stripes and everything. It was awesome.
It was absolutely beautiful. A lot of these younger guys are attracted to the 80s and the IROC style and that new, and to me, that's when they fell off. I'm like, I don't like the looks of that, but now I do.
Right.
Great appeal. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're in demand.
Yeah, they are. In fact, we just got one in actually relatively low production car. It's an 83, which, you know, a lot of people, when you say 83, the first couple years of them, they might wrinkle their nose a little bit. But this one's kind of special because it's the 5.0, 305, but it's the high output. And in 83, you could only get the HO with a 5-speed manual transmission. They didn't put an automatic behind them.
No kidding.
So there was only like 3,200 and some of those cars built. Plus, this one is... GM wasn't making them in a factory convertible yet. So there were a couple of outfitters back in the day that would convert these cars to a convertible. This is one of those cars. So it's a HO high output car. It's a 5-speed manual. And the thing's got 21,000 actual miles. I mean, this thing's kind of a unicorn, and you just don't find them like that, and especially with this low miles.
It's a classic example of one of those cars that you don't want to let slide. I actually threw that up earlier in the week. Is there one you let go? And I asked people, and there always is, and I think that's kind of one of them, right? Because I always go back to that Landau, that 79 Camaro, cars like that. Don't judge any car till you drive it, and then driving a car with 25,000 original miles to me is like, so this is what it was like when it came off the line.
Oh yeah,
right.
It puts you right back to your, not necessarily the 83, but like your 78, 79, that black one we always talk about. I mean, that takes you right back to the mullet flowing in the breeze.
Yes.
Smokes rolled up in the sleeve. They were.
Yes.
Your cassette player is going. You got a Foreigner cassette in there, and you're jamming out. Takes you right back.
It does. That to me, that's the one car that I feel I should have pulled the trigger on. But you know what? The great thing about working here is there's a constant supply of them. Another vehicle that's really popular with younger people, and it's not, by the way, I always say, guys, I got to stop using that word because a big part of this business growing is women. And I was asking my wife about this the other night. I was like, what is the appeal? She said it's the design. My wife likes vintage clothing. She likes anything vintage.
Well, clearly she's married to you.
Yeah, exactly. My wife is 16 years younger than me. So
now you're going to flex?
No,
you're going to flex? Is that a flex?
No.
Come on, man.
But you're right. That is the appeal. He's like, he's kind of vintage.
You know what?
What?
I'm 9 days younger than my wife.
Ooh, cougar! And another thing that's really popular is the 70s Chevrolet pickups.
Right.
I can't figure that out. I'm like, what was it about that design? Because they love them. It was 67.
Was the first
year of that second generation.
Yep.
Super popular with young people, and we always have a great selection of those.
Yeah, and that's on purpose. We try to
Yeah.
keep, I mean, literally you can look down the road and there's, I don't know, 20-some trucks or more actually, and always a good selection there. But yeah, the trucks are popular. I mean, I've got, in my garage, I've got a 75 square body. And again, go figure, it comes back to a story. Well, I grew up a farm kid and didn't have any money or whatever, so I get my driver's license, and Dad wasn't going to buy me a car. That wasn't an option. I mean, that I didn't even ask because I already knew that wasn't happening.
I'm with you.
So what he did let me drive though was, we had a 74, okay, square body, 3/4 ton, 2-wheel drive, 3-speed with the granny gear, okay, and it ran great. 350 in it. I remember there's 2 things that people always loved about that. So if I had any friends ride with me, the thing was rusted out, like to the windows, rusted. I mean, and I'm not exaggerating, right? But there was 2 things. I remember I'd pick up my friends, sometimes after school, we'd go to, you go to McDonald's or something, and everybody would, we'd get our bags and everything else, and they always thought it was funny because when they were done eating, and I apologize that they littered, but they'd throw their garbage away, but not out the window, through the hole in the floor that was rusted. Literally, I'm not exaggerating. They threw it through the floor on the passenger side because it was so rusted out. And then my other thing, and of course it had the big farmer mirrors, with the thing sticking out.
Right.
You could look in the mirror, and the box sides were going like this because they were, they weren't connected to anything. They were, because I mean, it was the tired old farm truck, and the thing ran like a champ, got about 8 miles to the gallon, and quite frankly, kept me from running around so much because I couldn't afford to put gas in the damn thing.
Was that your first pickup?
That was my first vehicle I got to drive.
Oh yeah, my first truck was a '69 Ford, and it was a beast too, beat up. But you know what? Those are the trucks that guys love, and that's why they always come back here and they're like, "There's the '69 I wanted."
Yeah,
right?
about every 6 months, I'd call my dad and I'd try to convince him when I was driving it to school. I'm like, "Man, it's making a noise. I think he's dying. I need to get a different car." Just keep driving it.
Right.
And then another few weeks later, I'm like, yeah, Dad, it's kind of hesitating a little bit. Something's wrong. Just keep driving it. Just keep driving it,
Is that how you learned to work on vehicles?
Back then, I wanted that damn thing to die so I could get something else.
Sure.
I wanted it to die in the worst way. I never beat on it, never abused it because it was also, but I'm like, please die so I can get something else to drive, when you're a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm like, I wish that truck was still around,
Oh, for sure. Not even a question.
Yeah.
So I'm excited because this is the time of year. I know that this month and next we really start to fill up. I know that these aisles right behind us, Mustangs, Corvettes.
Oh, yeah.
All of that's really going to start flowing in. So this is the fun time of year, man. And we'll have to get Jay back up in here sometime, and we'll have to chat.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I need to follow up on something, and my wife is listening. She'll probably roll her eyes. But, she brought up a good point about a couple of things. Number one, the origin of fuzzy dice.
Oh,
She's
no.
like, you need to find the origin of that and talk about it because people like me, this is her talking, I don't know what the heck, why did that start? I mean, you didn't even know. You were 20 years off of when it started.
I don't even know.
And so collectively, we need to, in the next episode or two, we need to address that.
We do.
And then what was the other thing? She's like, when you told the story about the yard brats and the oil on the manifold and all this, she's like, there's a lot of, maybe there's people that don't know what a manifold is. And I'm like, well, honey, I think for this episode and what this podcast is about, most of the people know what a manifold is. But, it's a good point. We talk about it like it's second nature. And
we do.
So, but yeah, you kind of, it's old hat to us, but maybe there's people out there that aren't familiar. But
the great thing about this place is, and yesterday was an example, there was a 1929 Ford Model A that rolled in, right? And it has a speaker in a Tupperware container mounted above the motor.
That's what that thing is under. I haven't even had a chance to go look at it yet.
I couldn't figure it out, right? So I think that it is a old school PA system, so he could run
probably like a parade thing or something they were using.
I don't know that because I had to explain to people, but I threw it up, and I kid you not, the comments are going crazy. So my goal today is to go back there, find the text,
and clarify what that is, because it is going bananas.
Speaking of old school, oh my gosh, listen to this. We found out and confirmed last week the National Model T Club is going to be here. And there's people literally internationally, they'll ship their Model T overseas and come on this tour and on this drive. And they're going all around, I know all around Minnesota and possibly even upper Midwest or whatever. And it just happens to be this is where they're hosting it this year. So part of their tour when they're here is they're going to stop here. The coordinator of the club told us there's going to be at least 200 Model Ts.
I love it.
That are going to be, and they're driving them.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not just going to pull up in a bunch of trailers. They drive them.
Right.
They go on this long cruise or whatever. So that is going to be a spectacle, and we'll probably broadcast from that, and we'll be talking about it leading up. But that's huge. That's going to be so cool.
You know, one of the first two customers that I had clients to buy vehicles from me is a guy that repairs those vehicles. And I asked him, I'm like, if you're going to pick anything out, Julian, why? Mm-hmm. Why these? He says, well, actually, I can get parts for them.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, you still can somewhat, unless the very early cars in Ford are getting trickier to get parts for.
Sure.
But a common Model T, there's quite a bit of stuff. And by the way, closed circuit to my friend and customer with the ice cream truck, take note of that date. We should have you here. So if you got your ears on, pencil that date in, buddy.
I can't wait for that, man. That's cool. I had never driven one of them until I started here, and then Pat gave me the lowdown, because depending on how far you go back, there's more involved in driving these things.
Oh, yeah.
Well, people think you just go and you hit a gas pedal and turn the wheel. That is not. Explain to people real quick the drivetrain on some of them older cars.
Yeah, so look, a Model T, they don't have a traditional clutch and a stick to, put it in gear, and it's certainly not an automatic transmission like we know today.
No.
So in a Model T, there's 3 pedals, and people think, oh, it's a clutch, a brake, and a gas. Well, no. It's
yeah, right.
It's the one is the brake, and one is you push to accelerate, but then you move. So if you're just driving around town, you keep it in low.
Yeah.
And then, but if you're gonna let her rip out in the country, you move the emergency brake forward, and then let off of the pedal, and now it goes into high gear. It's an experience. Yeah, you can't just, if you've never driven one, you don't just jump in and go.
No. What is the equivalent of let her rip in a car like that? Is it top speed?
Well, I know typically like a Model A, which came out after the T. I think their top end, unless stock, is around 45 miles per hour. The T's, I think they would get close to that. I guess I've never taken one all the way up to the top, but
how cool would I look, since I don't have to hit the freeway or any main roads, just driving back roads? How cool would I look driving to work in one of those?
Well,
do you think I could talk my wife into it? Just
no offense. You know what? Maybe we need to do this. I would place a wager that if I dropped a Model T in your driveway, and the only way you could get here was you had to drive it from there to here at Unique, I would place a wager you couldn't do it.
You're right. Is what I would have to do is I would arrive here, and I would get it here, and I would have our shop foreman Pat sitting right alongside of me.
Yeah, you might get it here on the back of whose tow truck. I don't think you get it. You might get it out of the driveway, but I don't know.
I did. They're fun to drive, but it's a unique experience.
Yeah,
it sure is. So next week we're going to be touching on the Eagles.
You're going to be touching what?
We're not literally going to touch.
Okay.
The Eagles' victory in the Super Bowl coming up Sunday. You guys stop with the.
Hey, you know what? Let's put a wager on it. $20.
Let's do it. $20.
$20. Chiefs. I got Chiefs.
I got Eagles. Dylan, he's our producer. Who you taking?
The refs.
He's going to take the officials. He wins.
Wow.
If the Chiefs wins, we're all paying Dylan.
How much are you paying him to say that?
We're paying Dylan. I love it. All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week.